Hi there. Welcome to Brampton Votes 2025, Provincial Edition. My name is Vijai Singh, and I'm the CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade. On behalf of myself and our members, thank you for making the time to watch these conversations. These provincial candidate interviews are a reflection of the Brampton Board of Trade's commitment to civic engagement, something essential for a strong and functioning democracy. Today, we have two very simple goals. One, to ensure that those who seek office in our community have an understanding of the issues that matter most to us. Secondly, it's to ensure that us, as voters, we have an understanding of where those who seek office stand on the key issues that affect us in our day-to-day lives. We know that regardless of whether one is part of government or in opposition, simply by being elected, you have the opportunity to shape policy and affect the lives of not just those in the province broadly, but those here in Brampton very specifically. And we want to make sure that we have confidence in those who we're sending to office. Now, typically, these types of conversations would take place in the form of a debate, where we had all candidates together and giving them the opportunity to express ideas and challenge one another. However, given the rapid nature in which this election came together, unfortunately, we were not able to get all candidates to participate. As a result, we instead made the decision to conduct a series of conversations with a moderator who will sit down with the candidate alongside a panel of community experts who will pose questions to the individual, allowing us instead to go a little bit deeper, give you the opportunity to understand who they are, where they stand on issues, and hopefully develop a really deep understanding of who it is that you'd like to vote for. These conversations will have some structure to them. Each candidate will have the opportunity to give a short opening where they'll explain who they are, what motivated them to run for office, and what it is that they stand for. Our moderator, Vijai Singh, who's the manager of policy and government relations at the Board of Trade, will then work with our panel to ensure that we get a fulsome understanding of where that candidate stands on critical issues that matter to us. Overall, we feel that we did a fantastic job with the candidates that we had, and we hope that you'll find these conversations informative. Now, I do want to remind you that if you do like the work that we're doing here at the Board of Trade, please come out and support us. You can find more about what we do at bramptonbot.com. We're always looking for more engagement in what we're doing, whether it be here as part of civic engagement with our elected officials or broadly in terms of the impacts we're trying to make in our community. Finally, I do want to remind you that it's important that you vote. Advanced polls open on February 20th and are open until the 22nd, with Election Day on the 27th. Every vote matters. Please make sure yours counts. We hope you find these conversations inspiring and also informative, and we look forward to having your feedback. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brampton Votes. My name is Vijai Singh, and I'm the Manager of Policy and Government Relations at the Brampton Board of Trade. I'm pleased to be joined by Vicky Dhillon, the Ontario Liberal Party candidate for Brampton East. Mr. Dhillon, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just before we get into our conversation, I'll just go over the structure. So I'll be asking Mr. Dhillon a few questions, getting to know him as a candidate, and then we'll pivot to our esteemed panel to ask pointed policy-related questions that reflect the priorities of the community. So to get started, Mr. Dhillon, can you please tell me a little bit about yourself and why you chose to run in this election?
I'm proud resident of Brampton and former city councillor from wards 9 and 10. The same area is Brampton East. And I'm proud husband and father, and very proud to have a dog called this. And why I'm running for Liberals in Brampton East. There are so many priorities in Brampton East and across Brampton. In the past 7 years, Doug Ford government failed to provide to Bramptonians. I can mention those like hospital. They promised 7 years ago that they're going to build a second hospital, then they're going to start third hospital. But nothing happened. You can say the crime increased 350%, and nothing has been done. There are so many other issues like landlord-tenant issues, a big issue in regional appeal. They didn't talk about anything. And the car insurance is the other issue. And the Liberal Party chose me to serve as a MPP in Brampton East because I have experience. I have a track record to deliver my commitments. And I know the demographics in Brampton East and all the things I mentioned that they didn't do. And definitely I will provide those amenities to the community.
And could you tell us a little bit more about your track record and your experience? Why should voters, believe in your credentials?
What I delivered as a city councillor, like when I elected in 2006, and as a city councillor, my area was very new. There was no rec centers, no libraries, no gym or pools. And I lobby with the help of my council colleagues. We built 2 libraries in Brampton East, and recreation center, and the home for the seniors to sit for the meeting space for the kids, and a pool there. That was in my area I delivered. But as a councillor, we delivered Cassie Campbell in the Brampton West, and we also built a field of hockey, Terrafin. That was very important because we have so many international field hockey players.
Yeah. Excellent. So, Mr. Dhillon, if you are elected on February 27th, what are your main priorities at Queen's Park?
The main priorities for the Brampton is, number 1 is hospital. They even didn't start the construction. And number 2, car insurance. Like there's many things happening about the crime, car theft, extortion, and for the city of Brampton, like we need a fair share in regional appeal. Nobody talk. I don't think they have that experience that they can talk what kind of share we are talking about the more members in the regional appeal from the city of Brampton. And those things I will touch there because we need those. It is not an issue to talk. Its time is over now, and these things we have to deliver. Like we need funding for the LRT, and nobody talking about the BRT. That's the major, how we can connect ourselves to the east.
Yes.
Because my area is Brampton East. We need a train going from Brampton downtown to connecting with the York. And they don't have any kind of plan. But when I was a councillor, I was talking to the people. The community told me that this is the need. And when I elect on 27th, those are going to be my priorities, and I will discuss with my government to provide those to the city of Brampton.
Thank you, Mr. Dhillon, and I appreciate you mentioning the BRT. That's one of our priorities at the Brampton Board of Trade as well. So this is a good time to go to our panel. I'll ask when I call on you if you can introduce your name and the organization that you represent. That would be wonderful. So we'll start with Gurpreet Malhotra.
Hi, my name is Gurpreet Malhotra, and I'm the CEO of Indus Community Services, and I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Metamorphosis Network of Services. Vicky, in 2024, the Metamorphosis Network published a report which found that community services in Peel Region are underfunded by the province to the tune of $868 million every year. That means that every year, each Peel resident receives $578 less than the average Ontarian for local services. We have asked all the candidates from each of the major parties in Peel Region to sign a pledge recognizing that the province of Ontario underfunds community services in Peel Region and committing to make investments and work collaboratively to resolve this issue. If you have not signed the pledge, will you commit to doing so now?
I already signed the pledge on 11th. Yeah, and I totally understand because I used to work with the organizations at the COVID time, and I know that how hardly these organizations working with the temples, mosques to providing the information. And I have experience to see with my eyes, going and talking to the people, and they have a vaccine, they have a food, and what kind of needs, they have masks, and thousands of volunteers from the local organizations, they knocking the doors in the cold, in the winter, asking, but I know they need a funding. But this government, they're cutting the fundings. They cut everywhere, not only with these organizations. If you see the health, they cut. If you see the child care, they cut. There are so many other health issues, even the seniors, they're cutting down. And definitely I will support for the funding to our local organizations. I'm really say that you, like these organizations, are providing well service to the community.
Do you have a follow-up that you want to ask?
International students and the number of international students that have been attracted to Brampton and the exploitation that they're experiencing by landlords, by employers, by the educational institutions. What would the Liberal Party be aiming to do to right those wrongs?
I know there was past issues, especially in the region of Peel, in Brampton. And I was also tracking on the social media. And we all know that this is the issue the federal government tackled this issue with immigration and about the students. But we should also know that the provincial government is the part who give the direction to the federal government how many students we need. Provincial government is greedy. They want money from the international students to run these private colleges because they don't want to provide the funding to our local colleges. This is the issue. That's why this problem created. As the Liberals, when our government comes in the power, we will definitely work with the federal government to discuss how the students can come. I'm not going to say that we should eliminate. No, we need students. We need immigrants. This is the country for the immigrants, Canada. But there should be a policy by the provincial government, how many students we need, how we can provide them housing, how we can provide them transit. Like I can give the example of the Sheridan College. Around the Sheridan College, there's no housing for the student. There must be a funding before we bring them to give them housing. I was reading in the newspaper, there were 25 students living in one house. Like, this is not their choice. They don't want to live together, but they don't have space. And that's why, as the MPP from the Brampton, I will raise this voice. I know the issue. I understand the pain when the people talk. Because every day, when I go out, like my grassroots are with the community. I am there. I'm listening to the people every day. That's why I understand those issues.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And we'll go to our second panelist, Kate Saldana.
Thank you. My name is Kate Saldana. I'm here today in my capacity as the chair of the Brampton Board of Trade. I'd like to focus on one of the priorities you mentioned of healthcare. Your party has committed to guaranteeing a family doctor for all residents of Ontario. Excuse me. How would your party address the $3.1 billion investment funding gap with the local health integration network in Peel Region?
They are fail to provide the doctors in every community in Ontario. If I can talk about Brampton East, there are more than 30,000 people, they don't have doctors. And the total in Brampton is more than 105,000 people, they don't have doctors. This is our government and our leader is promising with the people within the next 4 years, every person, they're going to have a doctor, and we will train the doctors coming from outside the country. Even we will make an organization to set up to talk to the doctors why the doctors are leaving our country, why they're leaving the province. we have to tackle that situation. As a MPP from the Brampton, I will definitely discuss with my leader or with the other colleagues to find the funding for the healthcare.
Thank you, Mr. Dhillon. And we'll go to our third panelist, Badar Shamim.
Hi, my name is Vijai Kumar. I'm a portfolio manager with Generation in the PMC at Corp, as well as a past chair for Brampton Board of Trade. Vicky, could you elaborate a little bit in terms of how a Liberal Party will help Brampton with its infrastructure needs, given the tight fiscal situation that municipalities are in right now?
I am not going to shy to say that the sitting MPP, Hardeep Garewal, he's failed to face Brampton Board of Trade to answer their questions, because within the last 7 years, they didn't provide any help to the Brampton Board of Trade, to our businesses. And they are talking about the tariff. From last 4 or 5 months, they are only talking about tariff, 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 tariff. When you talk about the healthcare, affordability, insurance, they are talk about tariff because they want election. We don't know what is the agenda. When they talk about the tariff, they should sit with the Brampton Board of Trade. Brampton Board of Trade is the body who always talk to the businesses. They're promoting the business, they help the business. And they're shying to come here and answer the questions. And they ask about all the time the tariff. When you're going to hear about tariff, tariff, tariff. But they don't know that, how they can help the business, how they can discuss with Brampton Board of Trade to find the solution for the business, the small industry, and how we can support them if that tariff comes there, if the industry is losing the money, and how we can give them benefit. What is the proposal? And they only talk about tariff.
And Mr. Dhillon, thank you first and foremost for advocating to work with the Brampton Board of Trade. To return to Badar's question just for a moment, the city of Brampton itself, like many other municipalities, have been in a position where they need to increase property taxes. Development charges have increased, largely because there are infrastructure demands and the costs are increasing precipitously. Now, it's no secret that the party leader, Ms. Bonnie Crombie, and the mayor of Brampton, Patrick Brown, have had at moments an acrimonious relationship. How do you think your party leader, Ms. Bonnie Crombie, will work with the city of Brampton and with Mayor Patrick Brown if she is elected?
I can say that my approach with Bonnie Crombie is very friendly. When I was a city councillor, she was a city councillor in Mississauga. When I was a member of FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, she was a member of FCM. And we have a very good understanding. I can approach to my leader to sit with our city, especially myself and plus other 4 MPPs. We will discuss what are the priorities of the Brampton. And yesterday I came to City Hall, they invite me, and I find out what are the priorities. Yes. The priorities they gave to us, those are not coming from outside. Those are the priorities for the city of Brampton. And I seen after, when I left the room, the 3 or 4 sitting MPPs were coming to know about the priorities. I was shocked to see that they don't know the priorities until now. They are in the government for the last 7 years. And the mayor of Brampton endorsing them, crossing the line, endorsing their party. And those guys even don't know what are the priorities of Brampton. They are failed to sit with the city of Brampton to find out the priority because they don't have experience. The party picked them, they elect, and they sit at home. My experience, my friendship, when I was councillor, I was very new. I came from a different community. But in the first 4 years, I sit with my colleagues, council members, I told them, this is my priorities. I need those. And we deliver. My experience, sitting in the FCM, and I work, there's another problem in my community is the drugs. It's called puppy husk. As a councillor, sitting in the municipal government, I approached to the federal MPs that this is the problem. I talked to the regional councillors. Within 1 year, we banned. It is now a legal substance. I am just telling you this because of my experience, my expertise. How I can sit with the other two governments, municipal and the federal, to find a solution if I need anything for the Brampton. I don't need a middleman. I don't need a bureaucrats in the middle to talk to the leaders. I will directly approach for the Brampton, whatever the needs are the Brampton, what time they need. Like I can give you an example. When I was chair of Public Works and Transportation, that the idea comes for the Zoom bus. Myself and city staff, we met with the transport minister, Minister Thakkar. I went to Queen's Park, and we discussed our plan. They were happy to provide the funding for us. Like I'm giving examples, like what kind of person Vicky Dhillon is, what kind of approach I can go to the other leaders, federal or provincial and the municipal.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Dhillon, thank you so much for your time and for participating in today's discussion. I want to give you about a minute or so to speak directly to voters before they go to the polls on February 27th.
Thank you very much, Brampton Board of Trade, to giving me this opportunity to sharing my thoughts and view of Ontario Liberal Party. And as I mentioned that it was an honor for me to serve as a city councillor in city of Brampton for 8 years. And after that, I didn't sit at home. I was involved in the community. I was listening to the people. And I want my residents in Brampton East to support me, support my vision. And I promise with the people that I will deliver. I will never hide from Brampton Board of Trade. Like today, Hardeep Garewal is hiding. And this is the main body. They are the people who promote every day to the business, to our industry. And I will request to your viewers that vote for me on February 27th as your elected MPP. I will deliver my promises. I will be in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dhillon.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Vijai Singh, and I'm the Manager of Policy and Government Relations at the Brampton Board of Trade. This is Brampton Votes, and I'm pleased to be joined by Martin Singh, the NDP candidate for Brampton East. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us.
Vijay, it's a pleasure to be here with you. On my second round, some years later after my first one, I think that the Brampton Board of Trade does a fantastic job of engaging candidates, and it's important for the democracy of our city and of our province.
Well, appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Before we get into the actual conversation, I'll just go over the structure. So Mr. Singh and I will just have a short discussion. I'll ask him some questions about him as a person, as a candidate, and then we'll shift it over to our panel to ask pointed policy-related questions that reflect the priorities in our community. Does that sound okay?
Sounds okay.
Great. Excellent. So to begin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose to run in this election?
So my name is Martin Singh, and I'm the NDP candidate in the riding of Brampton East. I've been very involved in the community here in Brampton for some years. This is my third time running in Brampton in an election, so I think it shows my level of commitment to the community. In addition, with respect to the riding of Brampton East in particular, much of the area that was covered with my previous municipal run back in 2018 is in that same area. And so I'm very familiar with the community and their concerns and what they're trying to find solutions for in terms of their daily lives and what they want from government. Outside of running in politics, I'm also closely tied into the community. This past June, I recently finished my command period, you can say, as the commanding officer for the 557 Lawrence Scots Royal Canadian Army Cadet Corps. And that Army Cadet Corps, which has been in Brampton for decades, draws in cadets from all across the city, but also many from the area of Brampton East. And so I'm able to understand on a much deeper level the concerns that families are having in that particular area and the challenges that they are having. On a personal level, in terms of my own qualifications, I went to university for a while. I have 4 university degrees, so chemistry, chemical engineering, pharmacy, and an MBA. I'm a businessman. We have businesses, locations both here in Ontario and back in Nova Scotia, the province of my birth. I'm a licensed pharmacist here in the province of Ontario. And I mentioned that I was, the past commanding officer for the Cadet Corps, and this is really kind of at the back end of what has been a career in the Canadian Armed Forces Reserves that started back in 1993.
Wow.
Is that helpful? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, a long resume indeed. So could you tell me a little bit about why you've chosen to run with the NDP in particular?
So my time with the NDP has been long going. You look like a young fella. I think my time in the NDP might actually outpace how old you are, to give you an idea. So I've been in the Democratic Party for 30 years. I've functioned, as part of that party at all different levels. Ran federally, now running provincially. I believe that the values held by the New Democratic Party are the values that most reflect our own Canadian values, and we want to work to make sure that we bring everybody up. When I was, living in Nova Scotia years ago, we'd say, a rising tide floats all boats, and this is what we want to do. We want to make sure that we work with other levels of government, be it federal, municipal, work with community groups, important groups like the Brampton Board of Trade, to try to make everybody's quality of life better in Brampton East, the largest city of Brampton, and of course the province of Ontario.
Excellent, thank you for that. And if elected on February 27th, what are your goals at Queen's Park?
So the goals at Queen's Park, some of them are specific to what we have going on in Brampton East. There are challenges with education, meaning that we have education funding issues. They exist on an infrastructure side, they exist on a staffing side, among others. The New Democratic Party has a 4-point plan to deal with that. So as I mentioned, there's funding to make sure that we just have larger and more schools to make sure that we can accommodate the students that we have. We want to make sure that we have also staffing in place. For example, I was speaking with one young mother who currently has been on or her daughter rather, has been on the wait list for an after-school program for the last 4 years. Like, she might actually graduate out of the school that she's in before she, gets past the wait list for that particular program. Also, tragically, we have a number of children in our city who go to school hungry. And so we want to make sure that we alleviate those challenges for the families that are affected. And so the New Democratic Party has an issue, a solution for that particular issue. And then also we know that the Doug Ford government cut funding for special needs children. We want to make sure that all the children in Brampton East and our great city have an opportunity to be the best people that they can be and be able to contribute effectively to society upon their graduation. And so we want to see that brought back. So that's for Brampton East, and there are other issues that we may engage there, but also, too, for the larger city of Brampton, we want to make sure that we get the hospital that we've been promised but not delivered on a number of occasions. The hospital is a particularly important issue. Parts of it people understand really at a personal level, meaning that if you have an additional hospital, certainly, we would expect emergency wait times to go down in the city. Similarly, if we have an additional hospital, we would expect that, people who are ill would be able to treat it in their city because we'd have the beds here instead of being pushed out of the city and treated elsewhere. But it also has, and this maybe comes from my background in healthcare and the work that I've done, in pharmacy. One major part that's overlooked when the hospital discussion says is that the hospital serves as a teaching location as well. So we talk about, the university that will be coming here in the medical school, and that's very important. That's where people are going to be trained, at least at the theoretical level, to be the future family physicians that we're going to have here in the city. But we need locations for them to train out in the community. And so you need the residency spots. And so what's often overlooked in the hospital discussion is the fact that we don't necessarily have that extra space to train them. And with respect to Brampton specifically, we have over 100,000 people here who do not have a family doctor. We know from research that people who get educated and get trained in a particular location are more likely to stay in that location. And it's one of the reasons why we have, the medical school located in Northern Ontario. Northern Ontario has challenges of their own with retaining doctors and having family doctors available, and they have found that this particular solution works. It also works in other provinces. The province of Alberta also has a similar plan set up. If it works for them, it can work for us in Brampton. And so the hospital really works on 3 separate levels at a minimum to be able to address the concerns that we have here as a city.
Fascinating. No, that's a great transition actually to the panel, because we do have a few questions around healthcare and healthcare funding. So I'll turn it over to the panel now. I'll call on you, and if you can introduce yourself and the organization that you represent, that would be wonderful. So I'll start with Gurpreet Malhotra.
Hi, I'm Gurpreet Malhotra. I'm pleased to be here. I'm the CEO of Indus Community Services and one of the co-chairs of the Metamorphosis Network. Pleasure to be here.
And if you could ask your question.
Okay. Yeah. In 2024, the Metamorphosis Network published a report which found that the services in Peel region are underfunded by the province to the tune of $868 million annually. That means every year each Peel resident receives about $578 less than the average Ontarian. For local, this is for local health and social services. We have asked all the candidates from each of the major parties in Peel to sign a pledge recognizing the province of Ontario underfunds community services in Peel region and committing to make investments and work collaboratively to resolve this issue. You've signed the Metamorphosis pledge to commit to better funding for community services in Peel. Could you please speak more about why you signed this pledge?
So, the previous question that we had with Vijay, we were talking about healthcare, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to stay on that particular issue because you mentioned healthcare in the preamble to your question as well. When we look at healthcare, currently we are, being forced to go cap in hand to the provincial government to ask for the second hospital. But when we look at it in terms of numbers and comparison, at 800,000 people now in the city of Brampton, we're now larger than Mississauga. If you look at Mississauga, depending on how you count it, they have either 3 or 4 hospitals, whereas you can say here we have 1 or 1.5. We shouldn't be fighting for our second hospital. We should be really fighting for our 3rd or 4th, to be frank. And so what it is that you're quite right. You have this basically gross neglect on the part of the current government and the governments that came prior to them with respect to the city of Brampton that's now resulted in us really trying to just get back halfway as opposed to getting where we need to be, in order to be a full-service city. I mean, we are also now the 3rd largest city in the entire province of Ontario, which is the most populated province in Canada. You wouldn't expect this kind of gross neglect on behalf of a government, provincial government, over years and years and years, knowing what's going on here. And so that's simply one example. When we look at other examples too, you don't need to be a genius to see what's going on. Drive around our city. You'll see that in many school locations, there's almost as many portables as there are classrooms inside the proper, brick and mortar school. And so, again, it's a clear and present indicator that underfunding is happening throughout our city, and it's been going on for an extended period of time. So what it is, absolutely, I signed it. I'm committed to it. I believe that's a very important document. And also, I'd like to thank those folks involved for doing the math and working out exactly what it is that we've been missing out on, because it's an important piece of information for those folks in Brampton who are going to be making their decision on February 27th. And I think that the New Democratic Party would be a fantastic partner for the city of Brampton to work towards ensuring that we get our proper share of the funds from the province of Ontario.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. We'll go to our next question. Kate Saldana.
Thank you. My name is Kate Saldana. I'm here today in my capacity as chair for the Brampton Board of Trade. In your comments, you focused on the size of our community, and I'd like to pick up a little bit on that. With our expanding population growth and our projected continued growth, what is your party's commitment to expanding public transit, including two-way all-day GO service on the Kitchener line, the Huron-Ontario LRT, and other transit initiatives?
So the New Democratic Party has a long-standing commitment to public transit, and it's part of a larger transportation plan that we have. Merit Stiles in the past, and the Democratic Party, even before her leadership, has said that we want to expand public transit generally. The electrification of public transit is one thing that we've looked at. But in addition to that, what we're also looking at is we want to try to make sure that we can take advantage of infrastructure that exists now. So back in 2022, the New Democratic Party undertook a plan to say all commercial trucks will be able to be taken off the 401 and be able to drive on the 407, which will significantly decrease the amount of traffic that we have there. Since that time, we've been able to engage additional research that shows that we're going to be able to afford to do that literally for everybody. So that's more of a solution that addresses not just Brampton but the entire GTA. But I think it shows, along with the plan that we have for public transit in support for public transit over a number of years, that we are concerned about the traffic issue that we have here in Brampton, because many of our residents we know travel outside of the city for work, even though they live here, and we want to make sure that we're able to meet their needs.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. And just to follow up on that, so at the Brampton Board of Trade, we've been advocating for the sort of long-standing a plan of Metrolinx to include an additional track in the CN Halton sub for the Kitchener line between Bramalea and Georgetown. Really, we've been advocating for a fourth track to eliminate track sharing entirely and future-proof that line. But recently, the candidate for Brampton South, Pravneet Sarkaria, the former Minister of Transportation, announced that if elected, the PC government will go forward with what they're calling Go 2.0, and they're in that they're looking to pursue a freight bypass in the 407 corridor. So that'll take freight traffic off of the any passenger rail. Currently, is there a preference from your perspective or from the party's perspective, whether we build more rail or look at a solution like a freight bypass?
So with respect to that particular piece there, I have to admit that I'm not exactly well versed with that. Like, I have expertise in a number of areas, but I don't have expertise in that particular area, to be fair. Yeah. What I would like to share with everybody, though, is that the New Democratic Party is deeply concerned about trying to make sure that we have solutions now for the traffic challenges that we have. So we understand that the Conservatives have promised the 413, right, and we understand that the 413 will go ahead. The concern that we have is that it's 10 years out, yeah, and we are having traffic problems today. Yes. And that's one of the reasons why we come back to our solution with the 407. What we're looking to do is we're looking to make sure that we take advantage of the trends that we have now and make sure that we hold the government accountable for promises. The difficulty that we have with the Conservative Party, particularly as it relates to Brampton, similar to the hospital mentioned earlier, promises get made and then there's no follow-through. And so it is easy to have that particular discussion about what they're going to say and what they're going to do, but when it actually comes to delivery, specifically with respect to Brampton, and with the previous question about the underfunding that exists here generally over the years, we know that what people say during election doesn't get followed through on after the election, and that's the tragedy that we have in this particular case.
Absolutely. And just for the viewers, certainly, could you articulate what the NDP plan is for the 407?
So for the 407 specifically, we're looking at basically on day one or shortly after that, there will be a plan to make all tolls off of the 407 for commercial truck drivers. This is a long-standing promise that we have with the New Democratic Party, and it dates back to our election in 2022. In addition, as I mentioned previously, we've now done our research, and we know that we can take the toll off for everybody. So part of that will happen more immediately than others. A lot of people, when they think about the 407, they think that it's entirely privately owned. That's not the case. There are still parts of the 407 that reside in public hands with the government. So the public part of it, clearly we can remove the tolls right away. But with the private part, obviously we're involved in a discussion there. But it's important that even when we look at that particular piece, that we're taking a very different approach than the Conservative government. In 2022, if you take a look on the internet, you'll notice that the private company that owns that part of the 407 had $1 billion debt to the province. And instead of collecting on that debt or using it to make that part of the highway toll-free, Doug Ford chose to write off the $1 billion debt instead of making that available for taxpayers' use. And so there's a sharp, distinct difference that's happening between what we're planning to do with the Democratic Party and what the plans have been with the current Conservative government.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. So we'll go to our third panelist question, Badar Shamim.
My name is Badar Shamim. I'm a portfolio manager with Generation Portfolio Management Corp, as well as a past chair of Brampton Board of Trade. Martin, with all the talk coming out of Trump administration around tariffs, what is NDP's plans in terms of attracting foreign direct investment to Ontario and more specifically to Brampton?
Yeah, so I hear you, and I would say also, if we look at the media recently, they're saying that investment into Canada generally is already starting to drop. So it's a deep and overriding concern. What we want to make sure is we want to make sure that we understand who has responsibility for what when it comes to tariffs. So tragically, Doug Ford, when he called this unnecessary election and foisted a $200 million bill onto the taxpayers of this province, he said that he was going to be our Captain Canada and travel for us and make things work. We both know that that's simply not the case. Yes, the premiers of the provinces and also the premiers of the respective territories in this country have a very important role to play, but what it is that they are not the decision makers in this particular process. And so we then draw a compare and contrast between who we currently have as our member of the Team Canada group and what we could have with Mayor Stiles as the Team Canada group. So currently you have a person who doesn't negotiate good deals. On the Monday before the election was called, the Financial Accountability Office for the Province of Ontario came out and said Doug Ford's plan to put alcohol into stores was going to cost taxpayers $620 million. Similarly, there's the investment, if we could call it that, of the spa that's going into Ontario Place. That's going to cost every single family in this province $400. And depending on how you measure that, it could actually be over a $2 billion bill for the taxpayers by the time it's all said and done. So you have someone who's clearly not a good negotiator, someone who's not capable of standing up for Ontario and engaging with people. By contrast, Mayor Stiles, the leader of the Ontario NDP and the next Premier of the province of Ontario, has huge experience in negotiating. She has worked with some of the largest companies that we have here in North America, many of them based in the United States, which would speak to the foreign investment that you're talking about. In addition to that, we know how large the film business has been here in our own community, and her background is with the actor union, in fact. And so you have someone who has excellent intelligence, excellent skills, a lifetime of experience, and success in negotiating with those groups. Now, in her previous role, obviously, it was with negotiating contracts for pay increases, benefits, and job security. But it's not that much of a stretch to say that she will be able to also negotiate well for us with respect to bringing in foreign trade into the country, and in particularly into the province of Ontario. And so this is the sharp contrast that we have between the current leader of the province, Doug Ford, and our own fantastic leader that we have with the Ontario NDP, with Mayor Stiles.
Thank you for that, Mr. Singh. And I have to ask, we all watched the debate recently on TVO, and Ms. Crombie, she pled with voters and said that those of you who voted for the NDP in the last election, please vote Liberal in this election. Mm-hmm. As a plea to not split the vote. Correct. What's your reaction to that?
There's all kinds of really interesting things as part of that, Vijay. I got to tell you, first of all, it's I'm not even sure what word we have in the English language to describe, but a person who's the leader of a party that's not even an official party in the province, because they only have, I think, 7 or 8 seats, to say that they're the ones that are in the position to defeat the government is amusing, to say the least. But also, too, if we bring it back to Brampton, because that's our focus here, Bonnie hates Brampton. Let's just be blunt about it. She's literally on the record, on video, saying that she, completely disrespects the city, had, prior to this election, prior to being leader, had no plans to visit, and she wanted to pull Mississauga out of the region of Peel. And let's just think about this. Like when we think about government and what we want fairness at base level, like partisanship aside. We want people who are going to be fair. The good folks here in Brampton funded their infrastructure building over years while they were growing. And it's not as though nobody knows that. Everybody knows that. And then they finished their growth, and now we're going through our own growth spurt here in Brampton. And instead of having those tax dollars now help us in the same way that we helped them in the past, Bonnie Crombie wanted to, pull the pin on that one and say, sorry, you're on your own, Brampton, which had it happened, because it was supposed to happen and then it got reversed, our property taxes would have literally doubled or more here in this city. So she has a complete and total disregard. So now what it is, you have Bonnie Crombie coming back currently and saying, I'm suddenly in love with Brampton, and we're going to do so much. But 2 weeks ago, she was here for a press conference. She stood here in the city, and her 5 Liberal candidates came in behind her. And she says she's running on health care. Yeah. And then someone asked her a question, Bonnie, how many people in Brampton don't have a family doctor? And she didn't know. And then she turned around and she asked the same question of every single one of the 5 Liberal MPP candidates. And none of them knew either. So for our viewers at home, I could share with you, it's just north of 104,000. That means when you walk down the street, 1 out of every 8 people in our city don't have a family doctor. And so, we have a saying in our family, right? Future behavior is predicted best by past and present behavior. In the past, Bonnie has disrespected Brampton. In the past, and in the present, she's disrespecting us now by not knowing anything about the issues. Talking about my own riding, 3 out of the last 4 elections, the NDP has been elected in Brampton East. Maybe the Liberals should toss their lot in with us, and maybe they should, decide not to split the vote so that they can back people who can actually win. You follow where I'm going with that?
what you're saying, yeah.
You see, so there's hubris there in that whole particular piece, to say that, please give me your vote so you don't split the vote.
Yeah.
But she literally knows nothing about us, never mind, and keep in mind, like, we're literally in the same region of Peel as her. If she doesn't know anything about us in Brampton, what's she going to know about people in the rest of the province, frankly?
Well, on that note, thank you for that, Mr. Singh, and thank you for sharing your time and showing up to be part of this discussion. It means a lot, especially under the circumstances of this election. I would like to give you maybe 30 seconds to speak directly to the voters.
So for the good folks in Brampton East, we'd like to thank you for welcoming us as much as you have during this, what is a quick and undesired election through the winter season. It's been a pleasure meeting with you on the doorsteps and being able to have conversations with you to learn about the challenges that you have had. For those of you who are interested in becoming involved in our campaign, our office is located at 4515 Ebenezer Road. We are in Suite 208. It'd be an absolute pleasure to have you come and join us. People in other locations have asked me, Martin, what are you going to do in the first 30 days or the first 100 days for us? And my response back to them is, don't wait. Share your concerns with us now so we can get the research done even before I'm elected on February 27th so that on day one, I'm able to be the most effective MPP that I can be for you in Brampton East. Thank you again to all of you, Vijay and the other panelists here in the Brampton Board of Trade. The work that you do is fantastic. It's important for our democracy and important for making our city a better place.
Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Pleasure.
Thank you again for making the time to watch. We hope you found these conversations inspiring and informative. A reminder that advanced polls open on February 20th and are open until the 22nd, and that Election Day is on February 27th. It's very important that you have your voice heard, and I encourage you, please make sure you get out and vote. If you'd like to watch videos of the other ridings, visit our Brampton Board of Trade YouTube page to see listed there, and you can see all the candidates that were available. Finally, if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing at the Brampton Board of Trade, visit our website at bramptonbot.com. Once again, thank you so much.